Cuenta con más de 20 años de experiencia en la creación y desarrollo de startups. Con solo 22 años fundó su primera empresa, TAT Telecom, convirtiéndola en un negocio multimillonario. Después cofundó Tribal, plataforma de financiamiento y pagos en criptomonedas. Actualmente se desempeña como presidente de Endeavor Egipto. El cofundador y CEO de Tribal, Amr Shady, en Milenio Negocios. Muy buenas noches, bienvenidos a Milenio Negocios, este programa que hacemos todas las semanas, Ilana Sod y yo, hoy con un invitado muy especial, Amr Shady, CEO y cofundador de Tribal, que en realidad es Tribal. Y Tribal is a solution for B2B international payments. Amr, thank you so much for being with us. How big of a market is this in general? And in particular in Mexico, and what piece of the market share do you guys have today?
Sure. So we focus on four main pillars. It's not just international payments, but we also cover local payments as well. We offer payments, financing, controls, and insights. When you look at the market, we're looking at SMEs of around 5 million. 4.5 million of those are actually micro enterprises. We focus on the small and the medium, so the remaining kind of 500,000. Overall, when you look at the payments volume in Mexico, we're looking at around 28 trillion pesos. Okay, today, out of these 28 trillion pesos, there's around 490 billion pesos of SME loan portfolio. Okay, so out of this close to 30 trillion pesos of payments, there's around half a billion pesos of SME loans. Now, when you look at overall the projections for the future, we see that really as a result of COVID, banks have been kind of adjusting their risk appetites for these SMEs. So there have been fewer loans. So we do expect that the loan portfolio for SMEs is going to extend to around 660 billion pesos around 2025. Up until today, Tribal has extended around $150 million in payments, in international cross-border payments that have been financed as well by Tribal. By the end of the year, overall payment volume that we've achieved is around 1 billion volumes.
Tribal presents itself as a solution to the gap between the traditional financial services offer and what companies really need. How are you addressing this opportunity in Mexico and Latin America?
Sure. So I think the word that comes to mind usually is like financial inclusion. And the way we look at financial inclusion is it's not just about bank accounts, right? So for us, it's really about SMEs having equal access to financial tools and resources around the four key pillars. And without these four things, you can barely say that you have kind of this financial empowerment for SMEs. The payments, financing, controls, and insights, we believe they're all part of that inclusion. So what does Tribal offer? When you look at payments and in the context of financial inclusion, it's about the ability to make payments both locally and internationally. Mind you, in Mexico, access to local payment trails has been easier than most other markets that we've seen. So, kudos to Mexico on performing there. On the financing side, number two, that's really a big challenge for SMEs, right? And without the necessary funds at the right time, you can have some of the best businesses out there, stagnate their growth or even fail. So what Tribal does on the financing is offer 30 to 90-day short-term financing that addresses this working capital challenge really head on and allows our customers to continue to grow and expand and close that financing gap that we talked about. We believe that financial inclusion is not just about access, but it's also about control. And the fourth is knowledge. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is part of financial inclusion. And in the context of SMEs, how do you give the decision makers, the founders, the managing directors, the CFOs, and their teams the ability to make informed decisions based on their data?
One big challenge, I believe, is also exchange rates and all these different processes and payments that have to be done when you go from one country to another. And if we're thinking about financial efficiency, which is something that we all need, especially small and medium-sized companies, I would like to understand a little bit further if you're thinking of Mexico, Canada, and the US, for example, as a region where it could be a little easier to do these payments across borders. And if there's an opportunity there still, or something that is missing that you guys know should be happening to be able to make the process or the pain of payments across border easier.
Definitely, there's just a natural synergy. I mean, Mexico at the end has been really dethroned China as the trade partner for the US. And, on our platform, we see 50% of Mexico's transfers going to US. And we're going to see more and more of this. There's, the rise of nearshoring, the tailwinds that Mexico has. We do expect that this is going to continue to be a trend. So facilitating that corridor and making sure that a company in Mexico that wants to create like an instant payment to get financing, to get access to financing, and at the same time have the ability to make that, receive that financing and make a payment instantly to a business in the US.
How is Tribal using technologies such as AI and obviously blockchain in its services?
And I think there's two main areas where AI, immediately two main areas where AI is going to have a massive impact. The first one is just this whole experience evolution. It's going to change how we interact with customers. It's going to super personalize content, experiences, discovery for customers with the most minimalistic data that we have on them, right? Maybe some basic references, and the experience will be transformed in a very drastic way. And we're seeing this today. The second thing is supercharging productivity, both for us internally in our own operations, but also for our customers. 40% of our work time can be automated using AI. And we're doing this today within our products, like Cash Copilot, which allows decision makers to have a conversation with their data for the first time, right? No. So I think like what's happening right now with AI is just really transformational. And, in 5 years, maybe even 3 years, you're going to see use cases that we haven't talked about and we even haven't thought about, right?
Sort of following up with this about you were just saying, there's also a lot of things going on in the fintech ecosystem, not only with AI and technology, but also with the current situation of, inflation and post-COVID and the cost of life and clients going through a financial crisis in general, and also a change in the way venture capital is addressing fintech in general. Yeah. What are you seeing in this ecosystem? What do you foresee in terms of how is this going to impact something that was growing so fast and that suddenly is being sort of put on hold for a minute or thought about twice, or focusing shifts in terms of where VCs want to put their money? Could this be, so it's a two-part question, I guess, could this be also an opportunity for Tribal to maybe look for other companies that are suffering and maybe buy them, for example?
Yeah, we've had a few acquisitions already. I think we've had at least 2 acquisitions so far. And we do have maybe a couple in the pipeline that we're considering as well. But I think and you're absolutely right. I think the timing is putting a lot of kind of stress on the fintech ecosystem. But I would say like the heart of the fintech transformation lies kind of an important element, which is trust. And this is why we constantly talk about, ethical financing and, fintech ethic at Tribal.
One of the challenges for fintech companies is their international growth is adapting to the financial regulations of each country. How have you addressed this challenge?
It's very difficult, of course. I mean, this is kind of you asking how do you be compliant and cutting edge at the same time. But it's absolutely crucial for companies to comply with regulations, but also prioritize continuous innovation. So I think the approach in general is very nuanced from market to market, extremely nuanced from market to market. And, you can set up a global servicing infrastructure, but if you want to add value more and more to companies in each local market, you have to go deeper. So our approach is always kind of really collaborating closely with local advisors, with regulated entities, with the regulators directly where it matters, and just making sure we understand the local market needs, and try to find that right balance between compliance and cutting edge.
You operate in several countries. What could Mexico paying services learn from other places that could be implemented and help the ecosystem, and especially small and medium businesses grow?
Yeah, I mean, that's we do have like a large footprint in multiple countries. Each comes with their own financial ecosystem, their regulatory environment, like we talked about, the customer behavior. So this global presence has offered us a wealth of insights. It's interesting, actually. I think the world can learn a lot from Mexico as well. I think we've seen an impressive progress in open banking and access to information, access to, data around the SMEs and their tax data that allows us to really understand these customers and serve them better, the ease of the SPAY network and the near real-time payments. And all of these things are things that we've been promoting in other markets to say, like, hey, look at Mexico. This is what's happening in Mexico. I think the one area where I found it super interesting in other markets is how governments and regulators have actually led technological platforms specifically for KYC, KYB, and credit scoring for both businesses and individuals. And this has really accelerated kind of a win-win solution for startups, for the regulators, for government entities. It's kind of very unique, but we've seen what it can do to the ecosystem.
One last question. Is an IPO in your medium or long-term plans?
Yeah, we're excited about the possibility for an IPO. We believe it will be an accelerator for Tribal and for us to add value in other markets where we can potentially grow inorganically by acquiring companies in very nuanced markets, but also grow organically in markets where the proposition that's similar to Tribal is very nascent.
Amr, thank you so much for this interview. Muchas gracias también a nuestra audiencia por habernos acompañado. Thank you so much. Good night.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.